Welcome to another week in review. It's the start of September. We're looking at the trading week of September 2nd, 2025, and it is a short trading week in a brand new month. And as we get into this last quarter, generally volume starts to pick up. Maybe some volatility will start to pick up as well, but I would expect us to start putting in some better ranges than we put in previously. So this is the second time I'm recording this. I tried with a face cam on as well, and that file was corrupted, so you don't get that this week. But maybe I can figure that out for future videos. I don't know if anybody cares about that, but it might be a nice touch just to have kind of a face to the name or to me speaking. Not that it's a mystery of what I look like. I'm all over Twitter, so just thought I'd try something different, but it didn't work. So maybe next week. Let's start off with some data. September 1st, Monday, holiday, so nothing of concern. The market is open, so Globex opens Sunday, 6 p.m. It is open until 1 p.m. on Sunday for the Euro session, Asian and Euro session, but volume obviously will be fairly limited in those sessions. So if you're trading Euros anyway, then it's no difference to you, but for me, very unlikely I'll be at my desk on Monday unless I get some alerts that come up and there's nothing else going on. So Tuesday we have ISM manufacturing at 9:45, 10 a.m. Manufacturing PMI. Wednesday we have JOLTS at 10 a.m. 1:30 p.m. we have Kashkari speaking on Wednesday. Thursday we have 8:15 the ADP employment print, 8:30 a.m. jobless claims, and 10 a.m. services PMI. And then Friday is the big one. Friday, 8:30 a.m., we have the NFP employment print as well as the unemployment rate. So the biggest, generally market movers from a data perspective are happening on Friday of a short week of a new month, there's a lot going on there. So going into last week a little bit, not much. We set a 5-day balance range last week. The weekly is one-time framing higher with the breakout that we had from prior weekly balance. The monthly continues to be one-time framing higher. The daily is in 5-day balance at the moment. So we had this big breakaway from Jackson Hole, and then we had a little bit of consolidation Monday, Tuesday, and then we had a break above balance come Thursday. So the prior weekly balance range, the big trading range we carved out, the high was 65.02s, and we broke away and closed above on Thursday. And then Friday, we started a liquidation move in basically right off the Globex open, and then put in a further liquidation in a really clean, very, very, very classic example of a B-shaped profile. It really doesn't get more clean than that. From a profile perspective, and a full long liquidation and then consolidation basically the remainder of the day on Friday. So a couple takeaways from last week, just kind of bigger picture for me. I talked the last video, blueprints. So blueprints for me basically are coded to mark implied range extremes. There's more to it than that, but high level, I have these as range extreme markers, and usually what happens here is stagnation and then a lot of volatility generally comes in when I see these show up. They tried to print at the highs at 56, 65.20s. They were very, very close. They printed, but they didn't last. So that put me in the camp of, expecting Friday likely to be either consolidation or a down move. I wasn't really looking to be on the long side on Friday. Bigger picture, I figured if we could hold outside prior balance, if we could hold 65.02s, then obviously the trade would probably be consolidation and probably continuation higher until I saw potentially those blues show up, which they didn't. But the open was significant on Friday, so the OR high was basically the top of that prior weekly balance at 65.02s, and it was an immediate sell. It took the first 10 minutes of the day to basically start liquidating this back down, and then you can see A period actually took out the RTH low from Thursday, which was the day that we broke away from that prior balance, and then B period continued, and then we spent the entire rest of the day basically consolidating down below prior day's value. And the actually frame value lower than the Jackson Hole day that had this big impulse move up. So significant in the sense that first and foremost, like for my work, these almost showed up, blues almost showed up. So that's significant to me. It's also significant in the sense that we offered prior balance highs and we had zero zero initiative buying on monthly close off the gate that kept us above, and we weren't able to frame value above these prior balance highs. That combined with the fact that the NASDAQ is also lagging quite a bit, and the NASDAQ actually put in an inside week, that'll give us a nice reference for this week. But it's an interesting spot in this market right now. So we cleaned up the all-time high that we set in the prior ETH session. We finally set the all-time high in the RTH session, and then we had, this big lack of interest basically above the prior balance breakout. So the big thing this week for me, especially, it's a short week. It's the first week of September, and it's NFP. So there's a lot going on this week, but I think we can probably break this down and make it fairly simple from an initiation standpoint for intraday trades. The first thing I'm looking at is 6480s. So I think first and foremost, we're in a 5-day balance range. We have a defined range on the daily right now on ES. I'll talk about NASDAQ after, but we have a very defined trading range. We're basically right dead center. So 6480 is the RTH low from Thursday. It was also heavily offered. This range was heavily offered basically all of Friday. We had zero ability to get above 6480s the entire session. So what I'm going to be looking for come Tuesday, and potentially tomorrow on Monday in Globex, but more likely Tuesday, is there acceptance? Is there volume and initiative buying that gets us above and holds 6480s? If that's the case, then I think creeping back up into 6,500 and potentially testing these prior balance high, or the current all-time high, but these prior balance highs at 6,500 and the all-time high at 6,500 is entirely possible. I'm just going to use this basically. It's almost the midpoint of balance, and it's a nice reference to see, early on, is there acceptance above or below what pinned us all day on Friday and the top of Friday's value. So stark rejection of value higher on Thursday with this liquidation, and framed value lower on Friday after attempting to break out of a massive trading range that we carved out. Early weakness to me would be no ability to stay above 6480s, at which point we should be down testing and fixing this low at 6455s. This is not a good low from an order flow perspective. There's a zero taper. I'd want to see this actually taper out and give a little bit more excess. But especially from an order flow standpoint, this to me is unfinished. So I think at some point we should fix this. If we're basically failing around 6480s, I'll be looking for that move down into 55s and then potentially down into 44 to 30. So from a line in the sand perspective for buyers, we have a clearly defined trading range here. We have this 5-day balance. Buyers do not want to lose 44 to 30. So we have this 15-point range. We have the current daily balance low, as well as the unfilled single prints here at 6430s from this huge breakup we had from the Jackson Hole day. So to me, it's going to be fairly simple. The early indications for me will be around 6480s, and if we're down testing the lows of 6445s to 6430s, buyers have to hold here. We have to see demand here, if you want to put it that way. We have to see a decent bid start to step in, some decent absorption, and any impulses attempting to break through this. We want to see those met on the bid, and we want to see lifted away quickly. We want to see big wicks down here. If you're a buyer, you want to see big wicks down here. We want to see very responsive buying. We don't want to see higher time frame closes below 45 to 30s. If we start getting those, then we're basically looking at a potential failed break away from that giant weekly balance range, and we could start to creep back down into the bottom of the Jackson Hole weekly distro, down into 6360s. I think that's very likely. So if we're below basically this range here, then I'll be looking for the short side to come down and test 6360s first. This will be also a big spot that we could see initiative buying start to take hold. It's also the 50-day simple moving average on the daily down here, but this spot will be critical. Early strength, again, would be acceptance above basically Friday's value area high, back above Thursday's regular trading hours low, 6480s. So if we start to see decent punches away that are still getting lifted, then again, I think the trade will be staying long, looking for the backfill eventually of this overnight range that we had, and continuation higher, potentially to 6560s. And it's also not impossible that what we could see like I was talking about before, is we could see an early puke and we could see this get bought, which gives us that continuation long trade up to 65.60s. So this would be an area where you could potentially look for look belows and fails. So from a balance rule perspective, on a short-term balance basis, if we have no acceptance below this current 5-day balance range, no acceptance below this 64.30 area, these breakup single areas, and again, we could see those long rotations get put in and then target higher. So there's two things happening. We have a potential look above and fail of weekly balance of this gigantic trading range that we've been in for weeks. We could potentially have the start of a look above and fail and a traverse lower. But what we could also see is initiative buying step in this 45 to 30 area, and you just have to be conscious of the fact that if we start to see that, then I don't want to be trapped on the short side down into this range. I want to see a lot of volume and continuation selling that punches through this, and I want to see this whole range offered heavily if I'm going to be on the short side to see this continue lower into 63.60s to 63.50 area. So be very careful in this range right here is what I would say. NASDAQ is also interesting. So once these profiles load, NASDAQ put in an inside week. So I think from that perspective, we have a very simple, I'll call it, line in the sand. So again, we're in a defined daily trading range. We had an inside week get put in on the NASDAQ. The weekly low from a regular trading hours perspective is 22,397 and the highs are 23,800s. Basically want to play how this inside week breaks. And again, we have a huge area down here down into 22,350s again on these breakup singles from the Jackson Hole day. The line in the sand, I think easily for buyers this week would be last week's regular trading hours low. You could also use the ETH low too. I mean, we could use this euro low that we set, but basically this 400 to 350 range. Again, if you're on the buy side, if you're a buyer, you need to see this hold up in my opinion. I'm sorry, there's a motorcycle that just went by. I don't know if you heard that, but it was very loud. We need to see this hold up, this 400 to 350 area hold up if you want to be on the buy side and you want to see a lot of speed away up from this area. You want to see big wicks get put in. You don't want to see higher time frames start to close below this because that could potentially start an inside week break lower, which should again target the lower range of the Jackson Hole weekly distribution and potentially those weekly lows down into 23K and all the way down potentially into the prior balance lows of 22,800s. So be careful on that side. Early strength, I think, would be the pivot I'm going to use would be 23,490s, 23,500s, you could call it. And again, it's the same general idea here. We basically consolidated the entire day on Friday after this long liquidation, the entire day below these prior daily lows. So Wednesday's RTH low, as well as, not including this wick, as well as Thursday's ETH low, we spent the entire day forming value below. So an early sign of strength or weakness, again, to me, would be how we trade around this 23,500 area. If we're seeing, a lot of volume and pushes back above and we're seeing a decent bid and lifts through, then I think you could look on the long side as an early sign of potential strength and look for those moves back to 23,600 and potentially all the way back to last week's high of 23,800. And again, we're basically closed right around the weekly lows on a regular trading session. We start accepting below 23,400s to 23,350s, really 350s, then we could see, a pretty decent puke down all the way to 23K fairly quickly, in my opinion. This is the 50-day simple moving average, but if we're below 350s, I don't really expect the bottom of this value to hold up. I think we're more likely to test down into 23K range. So watch how that week breaks on the NASDAQ would be, I think, the biggest thing I would say. That's going to be one of the biggest things I'm looking at is, if we have an inside week break up or down. The NASDAQ has been critical as far as, larger market moves. And obviously, if we want to see a big move up, we want to see this inside week break higher. We want to see, that 23,680 to 700 area, basically the RTH high from Friday. We want to see this bid and we want to see acceleration and drives away to get us back up into the 23,950s area. And if we start accepting below that low, then again, I think the odds are fairly good that we start, moving down into the bottom of this range in 23K. So trying to keep it simple. I feel like I always say that, but I feel like we have some, decent spots this week. And I think with the NASDAQ holding an inside week, we have a decent gauge of what this week might want to do, even though we have a ton of big impactful data, a new monthly open, and a short trading week. So that's all for me. I hope you guys all have a great Labor Day. If you're trading tomorrow, be careful. There's not going to be a lot of volume, so Godspeed on that one. If you find the video helpful at all, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Most people that watch these videos aren't actually subscribed, so if you find it helpful, that would be great. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.